accident. Well, if one of them has broken ribs and a knocked up skull, both cars should show A, significant damage, and B, paint scrapings from one should be on the other.
I don't think that was what Joe was saying. I thought he said that he meant the injuries were sustained during a fight.
Yeah, and so
that it could have been as simple as a little scrape, and Zeb would have been like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," and Owens had a
the fight could have happened later on after.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I'm also asking
that's what I'm saying is that if he got in a wreck, his truck should be racked up. Did the police look at it? Because if he said he got in a wreck, but his truck is perfectly straight and looking pretty good and undented, well, obviously he got the injuries somewhere else.
Yeah, I presume they looked at the truck, but I didn't ever see a record of it.
I think that actually, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm optimistic that this is going to be solved.
I am too.
And I'll tell you why, but we can wait till the end if you want.
Okay.
Or I can tell you now.
You can tell us now.
I'll tell you now. I think that he's murdered 3 people. Owens, that is. He very likely is going to get the death penalty. And if I were the judge in the case, I think I would tell him, look,
offer him a plea.
Here's your deal. You can have life in prison rather than death, but you got to come clean on Zeb Quinn, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that seems to be the general feeling, and we're not done with this episode because there's still lots of questions, because I do have some serious questions about if he did it. There are a lot of other questions of things that happened in the night that I don't understand why that happened. But I am also optimistic that in a plea bargain sort of situation, he will come clean about what happened to Zeb. At the very least, even if he didn't do it, he will be able to provide many more details or something like that.
Because I think the one thing we haven't talked about is that he was sort of cooperative in the first day that after Zeb disappeared, and then he shut down and he was completely uncooperative after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to kind of dovetail off of this, the things that concern me about the Owens did it theory is there's no connection between Owens and Ina or Misty or Wesley or Tamara. So why did the page happen?
Or was it just coincidental?
Was it just coincidental? Or
accidental?
Or accidental. But then why would Ina lie and say somebody broke into my house at that time?
Again, I can tell you is that people are weird about the cops. They don't like the cops around their place for whatever reason, and they'll just start coming up with excuses. I've seen people do that a million times. Do I think that's what's going on? No, but I can see that as, the 5-0 are here again. Just tell them somebody broke in. Get them out of here. You know,
maybe somebody did break into her
but
house.
She didn't. But it was my impression that she voluntarily submitted a police report that her house was broken into. It wasn't my impression that the cops showed up and she said, "Oh, somebody broke into my house." It was that a couple days later she said, "Oh, you know what? Somebody broke into my house, so that's weird." I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, the timing doesn't change my idea.
Sure.
But you're right. I mean, the timing of broken into is a little weird.
Yeah, and if she was indeed broken into and somehow, for some reason or somehow, Owens broke into her house, even though that seems super unlikely because he was with Zeb when the page... I don't have the impression that there was time between the time that the page came in and the time that they were seen at the gas station for him to go, break into a house, page the guy.
Unless Zeb didn't tell Owens he had to go on his own, but he went with him, and they both go to the aunt's house. The aunt has since left to go to dinner. Zeb's got a key. I'm totally making this up as I go. They walk into the house. Owens is just kind of walking around poking things, just, killing time while Zeb's looking for everybody. And then they lock the place up and leave, and whatever happens after that happens. But of course, the house is now slightly different than when she left it after a day or two of looking around. Go, wait a minute, that picture's facing the wrong way.
But then she, again,
but
then she would have said,
the rabbit hole, I know that.
I accidentally paged Zeb and then I left. And then
she may not have realized that she paged Zeb. I mean, how many people do you know that butt dial?
That's not butt dialing, though.
It is if the phone is in the couch and you're sitting on the couch and it's hitting the buttons.
Maybe.
That's basically that's a couch dial.
Maybe.
It's the old 90s or 2000 phone version of a butt dial.
Maybe.
It can happen, I
I guess
But,
it could happen.
Yeah.
Because the call would go through, it would hit the pager, and then the pager would terminate the call, and then give a dead signal, and eventually the phone would, I presume, would have to shut itself off with no signal.
They usually just beep.
I'm thinking it was more of not a corded phone, but a wireless phone is kind of where
Well, so the battery died? Is that what we're
Yeah, something
Sorry,
like that.
I know we're so far
I know,
down this rabbit hole.
we're really going down, but
Okay, so
I'll stop.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And the next big question, right, is why dump the car, particularly with a bunch of stuff in it? Like, what happened to the car?
The car might not have been dumped. He might have. The person who was driving the car might have been inside the little piggies or whatever
That's true.
it was.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, generally speaking, when I'm in a restaurant, have a nice dinner, and then I know there's police swarming around my car outside that I've stolen.
You're not going to go out.
I'll just go out the back door.
Yeah. I guess the question, it seems like the lipstick note on the back of the car, that seems like a note, right? That doesn't seem like, hey, I've stolen a car, so I'm going to write some stuff on it and all of that. That seems weird.
is it a note or more of a teenage gag?
Well, even then, you stole a car. You're not going to draw on it.
But if friends are walking by or young people and they think they know that car, they would do that as a gag.
Not 2 weeks after somebody's been reported missing.
The person in possession of the car might not know that the owner of the car, because let's say Owens killed Zeb.
and then sells the car.
No, he doesn't even sell it. He just leaves it in the parking lot somewhere with the keys in it. And then somebody else comes along and steals it and just drives it around for a week or two. Because that's what people around in a lot of places where car theft is basically treated like, they give you a tap on the wrist. You're not even likely to go to jail.
I guess my argument is the lips with the exclamation points. Like, why? If you've
Why
stolen
not?
a car, even if you've just stolen it out of a parking lot, you don't decorate it like that.
Why not?
So then, because why?
But it's not going to get you. The only thing that matters is what's going to get you noticed by the police or pulled over by the police. And something like that won't necessarily get you pulled
That's
over
fair.
by the police.
But you are going to get more noticed.
I
Maybe.
don't think that is going to put you on the red flag. I mean, on a cop's radar, because we all see cars driving around with stuff written on the windows for go the volleyball team or the basketball team or whatever it is all the time. I see that. I never read it. I don't care. It doesn't make anybody stand out to me.
That's fair, but there's also not like a manhunt happening. Like if
There could be a manhunt going on right now, and the one that I went by today, I have no idea. Because Asheville is not a teeny tiny town.
No, but I guess I would, to put it in like local perspective, I would say that the disappearance of Zeb Quinn is probably on par with the disappearance of Kyron Horman.
Yeah,
and you knew about that, and if somebody were like, hey, keep an eye out for this car, it's like associated with
again,
Kyron Horman.
I think that how long did it take for the Kyron Horman story to gain enough traction that everybody knew about it?
That's fair.
Was it 3 days later? Was it a month later?
It wasn't that much long.
I don't remember how long.
That's fair.
And kids are much quicker, but I'm just saying there's a time scale here.
Yeah. So, all right, the next question is then if you have killed this guy, why...
Or even if you haven't killed the guy.
Why 2 days later make the phone call to Walmart?
Yeah, that's kind of inexplicable, I know.
I don't understand that at all. So those are my big 3 questions.
And then there's a few more, too.
Well, those are just pertaining specifically to this theory.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other questions for this case, but that's that theory.
Well, there's also... one of your other questions I know is why were they going to look at a car at 9 p.m.?
Yeah.
And I don't know that we got that from anybody other than Robert Owens, did we?
That they were looking at, they're going to look at a car?
I don't know that the source was anybody but him.
I don't think that it was, but it's also possible. I didn't see, but it's totally possible that it was corroborated by his coworkers, like he was talking to his coworkers and saying, like, I'm going to go look at a car, or even his mom. I can't remember if his mom ever knew where he was going after work.
Yeah, I'd want some kind of second source confirmation of that.
She didn't report him missing until the next morning, so I'm not given to understand that she was expecting him right after work.
Yeah. But, and it's funny is I've seen a lot of people saying, why were you looking at a car at 9 o'clock at night? Oh, my gosh, what the heck?
That's possible. I mean, it's entirely possible.
People have garages.
But, like, you're 18.
People have outdoor lights, yeah.
You're 18 and you don't work full-time, like a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Find a different day to go where you can actually take a look at the car or take it on a drive. Or it's not dark out and, like, weird in the middle of the winter. I don't know.
But if you go to somebody's house and they say, hey, the car's in the garage, garage and you turn on the light, it's the same thing as coming over there at 9 o'clock in the morning when the sun is shining. You can see the car. You
Yeah.
can still take it for a test drive.
Well,
like, all
anyway.
these things are still viable scenarios
That's
and
fair.
options.
Yeah.
but this isn't a huge part of the mystery. It's just kind of a,
It's just like a weird.
a little weird
I
thing.
don't find the going to look at a car at 9 o'clock at night that weird.
I do.
No, it's not.
But again, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a lady. I don't like doing things.
I
at
think
night.
that's exactly
It's probably
what-
part of
that
it.
could be
Because
it.
as a guy, I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, let's go. Let's check out
Yeah.
that car.
Nope,
sure,
not me.
whatever.
Not interested. Thank you. If it's
Well.
dark outside and there's not a lot of people around me, no.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just take a gun.
My next question is, where did that dog come from?
Came from
It's
came from his
mom.
mommy. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
You guys are the worst. But seriously, like what? Like
I
what?
know. I think they made some inquiries trying to figure out. Like they talked to breeders and shelters and all kinds of
yeah,
places.
and they couldn't
found
track
nothing.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
There's a lot of puppies being born, though, all
Yeah.
over the place.
There
It's
are.
easy that it could have just come from somebody.
There are
but it's
lots of
still
puppies.
a weird bit.
And if it came from somebody, right? Like it's not as though there weren't inquiries. It's not as though people weren't on the news all the
Yeah.
time saying, "Hey,
You
do
would-
you guys know where this dog came from?
Yeah,
This
you would
is
think they
weird."
could put it on the news, but it might be.
Not everybody watches the news. It's fair. I
This might
understand,
be,
but
no, but I mean, this might be. This might tie in with the hotel key too. With the hotel
yeah,
key.
that's the
It's-
other question. Is
Well, no, and it might tie in with the fact that they were driving this car around for 2 weeks and didn't get pulled over and busted, which is that they might have been like out of town.
yeah,
They might have been
Road
like,
trip.
They might have been road tripping to God knows where, and at some point along the way, they stayed in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And some point along the way, they picked up a puppy.
Yep.
Not in that town, so that explains why no breeders or shelters
Mm-hmm.
or anybody else in that town would recognize the puppy.
yeah,
Although at the same time, of course, if it was just a black lab puppy, then well, sorry,
yeah. It's
they
hard.
all look alike.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. I guess I don't know. One of the things that I wish I knew about this case was things as simple as odometer readings.
Yeah.
Right?
That
Granted,
great point.
his mom probably wouldn't know exactly what the odometer was on his car. He's 18. He was his own free kid. But she would probably know, like, oh, we had the oil changed this long ago.
And go to the place that did the oil change.
Or even, I don't know, it had about this much on it. If he's driving, to Nashville, if it's this long road trip that's happening, those miles are being racked up much quicker than he would have just driving around normal day-to-day life.
yeah.
I wish that was information that we had, because it would shine some light on what was going on, at least with the car, if
I know.
not with Zeb.
It might be information the police have, at least if they're competent, because
I'm sure they have the odometer reading, but I don't know if they have like a difference or anything like that.
Yeah, the
It depends
history.
on it just depends on things like did he get his oil changed at Jiffy Lube versus doing it himself.
That's true.
Because you got to change there, and they had that little sticker they stick in your windshield. It's got the odometer reading. And
They
the
also
date on it
keep
and everything.
records.
Yeah. So,
They do.
Most
but he
places
might also
keep
change his
records.
oil because, especially when you're young and young and kind of broke, it's a lot cheaper to change your oil yourself.
Yeah, lots of people don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe he did. It's totally
Yeah,
possible,
I could
but-
see a guy, knowing how to do that.
It's not rocket science.
It really is.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I know how to do it. I just choose not to because my
Undo
car
a bolt,
has a plate
wait,
underneath.
put the bolt in, undo a thing, put the thing in, fill.
Yeah.
That easy.
Or use synthetic oil and never change it.
Quite easy.
Whatever
yeah.
you want to do.
Actually, I mostly go to Jiffy Lube these days, but it's not because it's that hard, but just because I don't want to deal with getting rid of the old oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the
that makes it
sucky part.
easier.
Yeah. My next question is about the hotel, right? Is they couldn't never figure out where the key card was from. I don't know how key card technology works. None of our experts are experts in the hospitality business, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know if there's. So in other words, you're saying there's no way that
That they could have just
if
scanned
there's
it
a signature.
Yeah.
It's a generic thing. I've seen them do it. They punch something in. It's a magnetic impression that then the card reader at the door knows to pick up.
Sure.
That's just
And so they don't leave any
room
information.
1 does this frequency code, and
Sure.
room 2 does the
Fair.
next one, and that's
But,
all there is. But there's nothing unique. Like
There's
I'm sure
nothing
they.
about the hotel itself that issues
Yeah,
that card.
it's a magnetic signature
Yeah.
that is probably in every card reader or whatever the machine that puts it into it. Because I've watched him just grab one out of the stack, that was probably discharged and just stick it in, and the machine
Yeah,
just
they
goes
remag
zip,
it.
zip, spits it out. It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and yeah, but it's not that puzzling really, because it's very likely the hotel was not even in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah. That's a fair point. As we've talked about that, while I was asking these questions, I kind of was like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It could have been from not local.
Yeah.
It's not that many hotels that don't, somehow put their name on the cards or anything like that. It seems like, hey, let's do a 300-mile search radius for the hotels that don't have these specific key cards. And to be fair, right, because it's a very specific, especially in 2000, it's a very specific set of hotels, because many of them still had the actual physical keys that you have. It wasn't full key card technology yet.
True.
And then most of the ones that had key cards were the nicer, more expensive hotels that you've got their image on the back or whatever. So it seems like it, again, this is because I'm not a police officer, it seems like it would have been at least worthwhile to figure out which of those hotels were and see if you could pass a picture of Zeb around and say, hey, did you see this car, or did you see this guy?
I'm going to guess that the pool of hotels that you are thinking is rather small is quite large, because there is a lot, in any town, there is a huge number of cheapo hotels that clientele and therefore are going to go to the magnetic system because they can't use a true key, because they're getting stolen all the time.
Well, that's true, I suppose.
But what? I'm not going to also invest in getting custom keys printed, because that's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're stealing the regular keys, they're going to steal the electronic keys, try to use them on whatever. I'm not going to go into cultures, but in terms of drug culture stuff. But people do this kind of weird stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just, screw it. We're going with the cheapest one
Fair.
possible. Shut it down.
Totally
yeah,
fair.
Yeah, but the other thing, and I'm sure you guys don't know this, I'm sure the police know, they didn't lift any fingerprints off the hotel card, did they?
I've never
No.
seen anything like that.
They must have.
They
though.
did print it, but I didn't
did
ever
print it?
hear that.
But the thing about it
I mean, they
is,
could have lifted prints that just didn't match anything.
That must be.
That
has to be it, because I mean, this is the other thing that would tell you something significant about the whole thing. And that is that they lifted no prints from the hotel key card, and that means it was planted there deliberately.
Yeah.
That's a false clue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
they must. I'm
that's a
sure they
scary
did.
thought.
Yeah, well, hopefully the police are smart enough to figure that out. If there were no prints on it, hopefully they figured out that following this thing is a waste of resources.
That is actually, that's a really scary thought. I hadn't thought about that.
I hadn't thought about somebody taking the time to wipe
to just
everything
or
down.
just plant stuff.
Plant stuff.
False clues, false
Yeah.
leads,
Grab a jacket from somebody off the bus, and then drop a key card that's generic, and then wipe the car down. I
It
haven't
would,
ever
although,
thought about that.
Gosh, it would explain why it's such a random assortment of stuff in the car, right?
Yeah,
Like,
water bottles.
I'll throw
or
a
drink
puppy
bottles.
in here, and here's some drink bottles, and here's a key card, and some weird random message on the back of the car,
Yeah,
and then
I know.
drop it where, the thing is that it was dropped in a very strategic location. Assuming it was dropped, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fair. Maybe it wasn't dropped. Maybe it's that person
might have
happened to
been
be at that
inside.
restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a pretty large coincidence, in fairness, though, that his car was found right next to the place of work of three of his relatives.
Yeah.
That's a huge coincidence.
Maybe
So if
it was one of his relatives.
It's
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Probably
They
not.
would have parked in the hospital parking lot.
yeah, they would be smarter than to do that. I mean, so I think the sense is that it was deliberately dropped to be found. If it was, then why with all that stuff in it? Was it? Oh my gosh, was it?
Red
Was it?
herring, Bill.
That's
Yeah.
actually not a fantastic amount of stuff to leave in a car.
It's not, but it's a
Yeah.
weird assortment of stuff. It's not that it's that much, it's just a lot of random stuff.
And then somebody said that the combination of the puppy and the lipstick message actually was a message in and of itself, which was puppy love. Seriously.
It's
I
possible.
didn't originate that one, but you got the lips, and the
Yeah.
exclamation points, and then puppy love.
It's possible.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
weird. I don't even know what that means. But okay, all right. Okay.
So, yeah, I guess all we can do is really hope that this case will be solved in the next year or two as the trial of Owens continues.
If Owens did it.
If Owens did it.
I mean,
certainly...
And he might not even know anything about it. I mean, he's certainly, after what happened in March, he's certainly my favorite candidate now.
But he also must know
something.
At least a little more, given the call that he placed 2 days later.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a
because
little suspicious.
either Zeb was truly alive and called him and said, "Hey dude, call in for me," or he wasn't and he just decided to place a call for whatever reason, right? I think